Bases dropped on a Power Hour edition of Soccer Down here. Welcome to the Saturday show. We go for right about 60 minutes, and there's a lot to pack into 60 minutes today. First off, we've packed Jarrett Smith into the 60 minutes. What's up, Jarrett?
Woo-hoo. Hey, I was unmuted. Good start.
Mute buttons, they're fun.
Music doesn't work at first, then I don't work.
You didn't have to tell anybody that one. That was behind the scenes, Jarrett. Thanks.
Hey, you know what? Hey, but you know what? It was a better performance than Miami.
Mm-hmm.
That's accurate. It was.
I've heard that Dax McCarty is still running unmarked through the middle of the pitch right now.
Yeah, Blaise Matuidi's
so
staring at him. Yes, that's also true. There were a lot of things in that one. We'll get into it. We'll get into New England and Montreal. We'll look ahead to Orlando and NYC, Columbus and the Red Bulls. That's today's MLS Cup playoff matches. We'll get into all of that. Let's get everything else out of the way because there's a lot of everything else. Early this morning, Newcastle and Steve Bruce attempted to set the game back by about 57 years. They might have succeeded. They lost to Chelsea 2-0. They did not really look all that inspiring. Chelsea looked like they were in second gear. It really wasn't much of a test. Domer's happy about Chelsea's attack. He wants them to continue to gel. I don't know if Newcastle really was anything you could gel against. We did see Miguel Almiron at one point. He had a good chance. Of course, the commentators did reference Steve Bruce's comments and the agent's comments, and we're going round and round. I was nice to Steve Bruce yesterday because he made a comment that I agreed with. I think Miguel Almiron's agent is maybe overplaying his hand a little bit. I will not be nice to Steve Bruce today because his tactical approach to this team is horrendous to watch unless you love this team. Sorry, Alex Bassine. And it's just not fun, and he's not getting the most out of the players he has. That's always the number one problem for a manager in my book, is if they are not getting the most out of the roster they have, they're not doing their jobs. And that's where I feel like Steve Bruce is at. Aston Villa and Brighton are going on right now. Tottenham and Manchester City kick off this afternoon. That's the game of the day in England. We'll get into a little bit of that here in a second. Manchester United and West Brom coming up later. Big match in Spain kicking off in about 10 minutes. Villarreal hosting Real Madrid. Another big match at 3 o'clock. Atletico hosting Barcelona. There's some things to talk about there. You've got matches going on in the Bundesliga right now. The one that I think a lot of people might be waiting to see here on this side of the Atlantic is Borussia Dortmund. They are traveling to Hertha Berlin. There's a couple things about that one. One, Gio Reyna. A lot of people in this country like to watch Gio Reyna. The other one is the potential debut of 16-year-old Yusufa Mukoku. They've changed the rules in the Bundesliga to allow 16-year-olds to play. He has turned 16. He turned 16 yesterday. He is eligible now. He could even make his debut here. This is the kid who scored a hat trick, at least a hat trick, in each of his 4 games for Dortmund's U19s. He was playing with the U17s when he was 12, the U19s when he was 14. They changed the rules last April, so he could play at 16 in the Bundesliga. He could play today, so we'll be looking out for that lineup. Ciro Immobile is back, finally. They got the tests to work out so he could play, and he scored for Lazio. They're leading 1-0 at Crotone. Juventus hosts Cagliari later. Cagliari's missing some folks due to coronavirus issues. Marseille and Nice are not playing due to coronavirus issues. That game was postponed. Those are the big games later today. Jarrett, what are you watching the rest of the day outside of the MLS playoffs?
Celtic just started. I'll keep an eye on that because I'm just hate watching them at this point.
Ooh, that's not good.
Well, I mean, my week, I was super excited for actually a game tomorrow where we have Rangers and Aberdeen, which is it's an underrated hate rivalry. I said this the other day in our green room that I think the amount of hatred that Celtic and Rangers have for each other is a wider it's a higher quantity. There's more of it. The Aberdeen Rangers hatred is a more concentrated hatred. And it's always very impressive. In fact, I'm convinced that every time Aberdeen loses to Celtic, it's a work just to get Rangers mad and to hurt Rangers. But with the Scottish U21s having just a slew, I think it was 11 quarantines, not necessarily 11 positives, but 11 quarantines after their U21 match against Greece. If you just do the simple Sherlock on it, it looks like Lewis Ferguson is not going to be available for Aberdeen tomorrow, which does hurt because he's one of the most fun young players in Scotland to watch. Otherwise, I'll keep an eye on the Bundesliga stuff. And then honestly, for me, the rest of the day is MLS playoffs because I touched on it last night on Twitter, and I know I'm not unique in that. A lot of people have touched on it. MLS playoffs are some of the most fun, bonkers playoffs that American sports has to offer. And I need it to get more respect outside of just soccer because MLS playoffs just go off the rails. So freaking.
Always good to get disco announcements at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Franco Escobar fined an undisclosed amount, suspended the player for one match in engaging in an inappropriate interaction with a member of the stretcher crew in the stoppage time of the match against Columbus. So he will serve his suspension during Atlanta's first match of the 21 MLS regular season. Fined an undisclosed additional amount for his failure to leave the field in a timely and orderly manner after receiving a red card in the stoppage time situation. And the defender has been issued a third fine for an undisclosed amount for re-entering the field at the conclusion of the match to engage in an inappropriate interaction with a Columbus Crew staff member. Did not see that last one. So 3 fines and just a 1-game suspension, and that would have been for the red card. So no additional suspension, which I'm honestly surprised. I thought he would get another game, and I probably thought he should have got another game, even if the contact was minimal, if it even existed, which, judging from the way Disco is coming down on it, that's how they saw it. They're not even adding the extra game. I would have given the extra game for even being in the position. I'll take it. For once, Disco is on the lighter side of things. Also, when it comes into the postseason, Dairon Asprilla has been suspended for 1 match and fined an undisclosed amount for violent conduct in his 81st minute of the Portland match against LAFC. It was an issue with the goalkeeper, Vermeer, and he will miss Portland's first playoff game. So this falls under disciplinary committee parameter number 3, in which the Disco acts where Pro acknowledges an on-field referee or video review error, and Disco is unanimous that the play warrants at least a 1-match suspension as a clear and unequivocal red card. So that is another check on the Pro making a mistake and actually admitting it publicly at this time. We'll see how many other times there are. So that happened. You also had Orlando's assistant coach get a 2-match suspension and fined an undisclosed amount for a violation of the league's bench behavior policy in the 68th minute of Orlando's match against Columbus on November 4th. He served the first match of that suspension on November 8th on decision day. He will not be on the bench today, Fabian Bazan. So that's your Disco update.
I feel like it's a really easy fine to hand out, given how it's not as infrequent as you might think with like assistant coaches mouthing off and getting real close to the touchline. I feel like that's one you could hand out more if you wanted to.
You could. This one must have been really egregious to get a 2-game suspension on top of it.
Yeah. So magic words, the whole thing.
I think that's beyond magic words. That must have went to a whole nother place. That's really surprising. I don't think we've seen a 2-game suspension for anything from the bench. We haven't seen it this season. I don't remember seeing it in recent seasons either. It's that's a big one. That's a very big one. John, what games are you watching later today?
Well, I'm with Jared. I think that my big screen experience will be MLS playoffs, and that's going to be monopolizing the big screen in Office HD. I'll probably take the laptops and look at the other things. What can we watch on the Fanatis today, so I can have that up on the laptop while I'm watching MLS Cup playoffs?
All kinds of things on Fanatis. I mean, all your stuff on BN you can watch. So Barcelona and Atleti at 3 is a big one. Real Madrid and Villarreal right now is about to kick off. You can also watch the Argentine Copa de la Liga Profesional, and at 3:10 you've got Colón hosting Defensa y Justicia. You've got Huracan hosting Vélez at 5:20, and at 7:30 you got Independiente hosting Central Córdoba. The games last night were really good. Boca celebrated. They finally got to lift the trophy for winning the league back in March, and then they lost at home to Lanús. So Lanús, look, here's what I'm going to say, because the last 2 number 10s at Lanús have come to Atlanta. This new number 10, you might want to go ahead and start watching Lanús because he's really good. More of a true number 10 from what I've seen so far. He had a great match yesterday. So you might want to add Lanús to your must-watch every week. Good win for them at Boca. And then River beat Bonfield last night in the second match of the night. So anything else from around the world you want to get into? We've got a lot of MLS stuff. Is there anything else from around the world that has grabbed y'all's attention?
Just a scoring update on a very cheeky chip from Danny Welbeck in the 12th minute. Ross Barkley started for Aston Villa, was given the captain's armband, had to be pulled after 2 minutes with a hamstring injury. And Brighton takes advantage of that substitution/absence. Welbeck comes in transition, cheeky chip over Martinez, and it's 1-0 Brighton in the 12th. That's what I'm watching over here, but no, let's go. I'm ready to go wherever you want to go.
Yeah, just remember to speak into the mic, John. When you turn your head and you're not speaking into the mic, it's a problem. When you're speaking to the TV that's over there, we kind of
I'm going to speak to Graham Potter and go, dude, you're up 1-0. Nice job.
There you go. That's better. Jarrett, anything else on your mind today, this morning? What have you?
Honestly, it goes back to the Scotland U21 thing, and not just for Scotland's sake. The more and more of these international windows we have, the more and more we're going to have these guys getting quarantined after they go on international trips. And, at what point do you just say, hey, we're only going to take international breaks given the current situation for actual games that mean a damn and not friendlies?
Well, you must have been reading my mind because I want to connect some dots here this morning. I'm going to read you the last paragraph of Aberdeen's statement about this. And they did not name the player. It's, if you do the math, it's got to be Lewis Ferguson. With 3 first-team players, because 2 others who were part of that U21 squad are self-isolating. So this is from Aberdeen. With 3 first-team players now missing in what is a crucial week for the club, these developments will have a significant impact upon the integrity of its preparations, and it will be seeking urgent assurances from the Scottish FA to ensure its players remain safe whilst on international duty. The U21s did not have competitive matches. You have guys who have now tested positive, and you have other guys who will be missing games thanks to whatever happened. Let's go to Greece for a second. Olympiacos. They have now accused FIFA of paying little attention to concerns about player welfare after 2 more of their team contracted COVID while on international duty in Africa. Olympiacos said that the CAF and their member associations were not able to protect players' health. Players tested positive. They're probably going to be missing players for a Champions League match with Manchester City in the midweek. They have asked FIFA to ensure that safety protocols would be applied in the recent international breaks. Olympiacos, in the letter to FIFA, said, sadly, FIFA paid little attention to those concerns. So you've got Olympiacos ticked off. You've got Aberdeen ticked off. You've got most of the clubs that have had Uruguayan players in their roster ticked off because they've had an outbreak. Norway had a massive outbreak with their squad. Ukraine had issues. You had games not get played in Nations League. Are the national teams doing enough to protect these players while they're on international duty? I don't think it's all down to just differences in testing between national team associations and clubs. I don't think that's it. You're not seeing as many of these outbreaks while in club situations. Does it happen? Yes, it has, and it will continue to do so because the virus is still out there. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. But where you're seeing the majority of the issues is when players come back from international duty. And when you see pictures like the Uruguayan Minister of Public Health blasted with players sitting around a fire pit, having an asado, and then having 16 people as part of that delegation test positive, yeah, if I'm Cagliari today and I'm missing Diego Godin, I'm angry. If I'm Bob Bradley and I'm LAFC and I'm missing 2 players going into a playoff game, I'm furious. And they need to be called out. Yeah. And I'm glad that it is going past the, well, you know, we don't need to be doing these international duty things, et cetera, et cetera. It's going past the, look, you're going to do it. As Olympiacos says, we warned you. We asked you to take this seriously. FIFA didn't pay any attention to it. Aberdeen calling out the Scottish FA for players coming back testing positive. It needs to get to that point. Because if you're going to have international play, and there are games that need to get played, I'm not on the other side where it is, don't play international competition, don't play international play. Like, look, you've got a World Cup at the end of 22. You very well might have to push that back because you can't complete a qualification process. That's the last thing FIFA wants to happen. They might not have a choice. They're going to try to get this done. There's a lot of money on the line. There are games that can get played, and they should get played in a safe manner. There are too many situations on national team duty. FIFA has to be very careful about this. And if that means games are forfeited when players test positive on national team duty when they did not test positive with their clubs, then games get forfeited. But it's got to be taken more seriously. National teams are not doing a good enough job across the board.
And, I mean, for me, as an aside, I just look at the value of the international friendly right now, considering...
that's a whole different topic. International friendlies are garbage right now.
And that's what that was my basic point. It's like these things don't even need to be a part of the discussion. And it creates another opportunity where something like this could happen. Those things need to be wiped off the board right now because you've got other things to focus on.
Yeah, but that's not the issue. I mean, that's the issue for injuries, but that's not the issue with COVID because playing an international friendly before you play a game that matters or counts for something doesn't change the national team's responsibility in taking care of their players. Doesn't change the national team's responsibility in making sure that the players are not having an asado because that doesn't happen without some involvement. Making sure that the players aren't hanging around a fire pit without their masks on. Making sure those things happen. Look, MLS did a bubble for the league, and they had players from different teams interacting. They made sure masks were mandatory. They drove that point home. You didn't see outbreaks inside the bubble. National teams have to do better. I don't care if it's a friendly or not. I'm with you on friendlies not happening right now due to the injury situation. Fewer games, the better. There are games that need to get played. That doesn't excuse national teams from not doing their jobs. Uruguay is a prime example. Olympiacos is alleging that others aren't. Aberdeen is now alleging that Scotland did not do a good enough job. It should not be happening that because a player flies, especially when you're doing the charters, you're doing all these things to make sure it's safe, players should not be testing positive and there should not be outbreaks and then affecting the club game. That's who pays these players. And now Olympiacos was one of the biggest games they could ever have. A home match against Manchester City in the Champions League, they're going to be missing players because of it. Aberdeen with a massive game tomorrow against Rangers. They're going to be missing 3 first-team players because of these situations. LAFC with a playoff game. Yeah. They're going to be missing 2 Uruguayans. I don't know about the rest of the group. They're missing 2 Uruguayans, and we know that Uruguay did not follow proper protocol. There's no excuse for this at the national team level.
None, zero.
Some of that has to go to the players, too.
It does. Yeah. No, absolutely. No, absolutely.
I'm with you. Like, the national teams need to do a better job, but the players have got to exercise the right amount of caution here. You got to be able to look around and say, hey, our national team is doing a crap job of containing and taking this seriously, so I need to take extra steps myself. And if that means isolating in a hotel room, that means wearing masks and gloves if need be, being overly cautious and almost comically so, then do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't rely just on the federation to provide your safety. You got to have some common sense about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the federation and the national team staff has to do a better job. But yeah, the players are ultimately the ones who are going to have to protect themselves and protect the people who are paying their salaries. I mean, that's the thing with Rossi and Rodriguez, and that was the thing. We don't know what happened with Miami. These players didn't go on international duty, so it's a different situation. But yeah, I mean, you're getting paid to do a job, and if you're not doing the things that allow you to do that job, that's on you to a degree as well. Just the fact that it's happening on international duty so much, I think now FIFA really has to take a better look at this and put real protocols and real punishments in place for when these things happen, and they have to figure this out. All right, let's get caught up on the Twitch pitch before we jump into MLS. Bernd Durstberger points out that our boy, and he is our boy, I will claim him as well, Nico Gonzalez scored again for Stuttgart. This is the Argentine player who is starting to break through. All the Argentines are like, Nico Gonzalez? And yes, he keeps scoring goals for Argentina. He keeps scoring goals for Stuttgart. They were down 1-0. Now they're up 2-1 on Hoffenheim at halftime. Conversation about Franco Escobar. Christopher Abel says he shouldn't have been red carded in the first place, and I would agree with that. I think the second yellow was harsh. It wasn't given for dissent; it was given for the foul, according to what was written. That doesn't always match up with the referee report, but I haven't seen it updated. Chris says, you want to know why he only got one game? Because of the shocking retroactive red card earlier in the year. That shouldn't apply, and even that, I mean, I didn't like it, but okay, if that had been red carded in the game, I wouldn't have been massively super angry. Should have been punishment both ways for that incident in the Nashville game. But I don't think that factored into Disco's situation here. It shouldn't, because they have to look at everything as an individual situation. I was expecting 2 games. 1 game, take it and run, and he's going to have to come out of his pocketbook a decent bit too. Badgermon likes... go ahead, sorry.
Part of me wonders, and I don't mean to go black helicopter. Part of me wonders if it is 1 game. No. Part of me wonders if it's 1 game because they acknowledge that the second yellow was incorrect. He shouldn't have been sent off, and he's getting the game for the confrontation. That if he hadn't done the confrontation, I wonder if it would have been rescinded.
Maybe.
And the confrontation is why he's getting that game. Otherwise, it could have been 2 games would have made sense in that instance. 1 game for the sending off and 1 game for the confrontation. And I wonder if they said, well, that shouldn't have been a second yellow. That foul wasn't second yellow worthy in that instance, but we're going to give you the game because of everything that transpired afterward. And it balanced out.
Sometimes disciplinary committees will think that way.
Logical, but.
I've been on disciplinary committees, and yeah, that conversation will come up. More so in the way Jarrett presented it, in that you see the incident. I mean, when I did disco stuff with Georgia Soccer, we didn't have video of 95% of the situation. So we're going by the referee report. We're going by whatever reports were filed by the people involved, witnesses, etc. So where we felt like the initial situation might have led to the transgression, it did affect a little bit. So yeah, we didn't, and this is where I would tell Chris, and maybe it's different with MLS, I don't know, but we didn't look back at previous incidents outside of that incident. We didn't go back to other games or other seasons or whatever. We did if we felt, well, this probably shouldn't have even started because he shouldn't have been sent off to begin with. So maybe there's a little bit of leniency there. Who knows? Maybe that factors into it. Let's see what else is going on. Burns said Boca looked bad last night. I thought so too. I watched a decent bit of it before going over to MLS playoffs, but Boca looked like they were still celebrating lifting the trophy a few hours beforehand. So one cool thing about the Boca celebration is that it did come out. Some of the different players who have left the club that were part of the last season will be getting championship medals, and one of those is Daniele De Rossi. He will be getting a championship medal for being part of Boca's squad earlier in the season. I think he played 6 games, and he's going to get a league title medal, which is kind of cool. Christopher Abel and Abby want to put us in charge of refereeing in Major League Soccer, and I decline very strongly. I want no part of that. Get me out of that situation. Nope, don't want it. Don't want it.
Nope.
J-Dub lets us know that Bayern is losing to Werder Bremen 1-0 at halftime in Munich, and Josh Sargent has the assist for Werder Bremen. Very, very interesting. Badger says, first, Badger liked the Atlanta Chiefs jersey back here.
Yes.
eBay purchase, and I think it's legit. Like, it was a cheap enough price that I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and grab that because it looks real. Like, I wondered if it was a recreation because I think the person had multiple ones for sale, so I'm a little wondering. It was made by Hummel. It does have an authentic Hummel tag from the late 70s. I don't know if it was a game jersey. It might have been like something that was
just bought something from their old kit man who just took everything.
Yeah, because you didn't have like stuff out in stores like you do now. So I don't know, but it's from the 70s. So it's pretty cool. Let me see if I can grab it without tearing everything down. I don't know if I can
tear everything down. Careful.
I'm going to tear everything down.
The hanger.
Yeah, the hanger stuck. So, there you go. It is what it is. You're just going to have to deal. Badger also.
The Atlanta Chiefs and the Atlanta Silverbacks both mentioned in the last 12 hours.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
I could go a lot deeper if we want to, but we're not going to do that right now. Yes, the Silverbacks were mentioned on ESPN, which was good stuff last night. Badger says about national team stuff, it's not going to be taken seriously until a star player gets really ill or worse. I hope that now the pressure from the clubs will change that. I hope that they'll push it. Turner says, how did it take Disco almost 2 weeks to come up with a decision? I think they just waited until everything was getting back underway. I don't know why they announced it today and not yesterday. Normally they do a Friday news dump. I don't know. That's typically what they'll do is they'll wait till the next set of games. So they didn't do it over the international break because there were no games. They do it right before those games start. There is an appeal process and stuff. I don't know if Franco's fit under that. I know Aspria's did, at least the reporting out of Portland, was that it was appealed. So that's what held it up. That's been typical the way they've announced it. So I'm not going black helicopter there. Christopher Abel wants to know if Atlanta can get a friendly ahead of the CCL game, and I'm assuming not, just because of all the different protocols and situations. I would like to see it, and Chris has a good suggestion of playing Montreal maybe in the week before now that they're eliminated because it would help both. And if Montreal's in the country and in MLS protocols and doing all those things, then yeah, that's actually a really good idea if you can pull it off, even if it's behind closed doors and can make it work. Not bad. Good idea. Chris also asks, off topic, why has MLS still not fined DC for the illegal substitution of Russell Canals?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
that one.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, no one knows.
Very, very good question.
Who knows the ways of MLS? They sure as hell don't.
Yeah, it's true. Gwen is barking at us to tell us we have 30 minutes and it's time to talk MLS playoffs, so we're going to do that now.
Thank you, Gwen.
Let's get into last night's games. So, the early one. New England had to work for it, and they put in the work, and they got the win, 2-1. Late goal, 95th minute from Gustavo Bo. Absolute rocket. He's had a few of those in his time in New England. He had a goal and an assist on the night, man of the match. Carlos Heel with a great goal to open the scoring. Montreal found one on a really nicely worked set piece, Romel Kyoto in the 61st. You look at the numbers from this, and it plays out about like you thought it would. 65-35 possession for New England. New England had 25 shots to 9 for Montreal. 9 of New England's shots were on target. So 7 saves for Clément Diop, a couple ridiculous saves. It was all New England, but they
Yeah,
could.
Diop was on one last night.
He was, but he does that from time to
That's
time.
the thing. It's like, for me, it's like you either get good Diop or you get insane Diop, or Diop that's kind of like just out to lunch. And last night you got the former, it seems.
Yeah, when he's on, he's one of the best shot stoppers in the league. I think some of the rest of his goalkeeping work is a little dodgy from time to time, but shot stopping, he's got that in spades, and he had to last night because New England. You go back and look at the numbers, and there's some shocking ones for New England and what they did. Carlos Hill created 9 chances. You don't see that all that often in games like this. Bo had a goal, created 5 chances. You go all the way down, a bunch of people created chances. So totaling it up, you're talking about 22 chances created by New England. That's obscene. Like that doesn't happen. And it did last night. You flip it over to Montreal, they created 5 chances, and it felt like they created 5 chances. There really wasn't much going on for the Impact. I think everybody picked New England, so the result wasn't a surprise. Maybe how we got there was a surprise. What else stood out to you about it, Jarrett?
Well, I would say for me, it's I enjoy how many like I said, I enjoy how many of these MLS playoff games go off the rails with guys just pulling the trigger from distance, and you get great moments like Bo just pulling up and hitting a 2-seamer, and then watching the poor damn goalkeeper just do the classic, just lay on your back and turtle up, because that was it. Montreal is going to be an interesting animal. I was almost, not even almost, I was foolishly high on Thierry Henry coming into this season. He's not as good as I think it's not worked as well as I think I wanted it to, but it's also not as bad as I feared it could be. I want to see what they can do in a normal year where they're not having to live out of a hotel in New Jersey. And then I think you get a better idea of what Thierry Henry is now versus, what he was at that disaster at Monaco. Also, how much play does he get with the the roster makeover going forward? How much say does he get in guys who come in and go out, and how that I think will impact how we feel about him. Bruce is just going to be Bruce. I enjoy him slandering Philadelphia immediately after the match before they have to go play the Union. Damn, y'all, look what happens when you get all your designated players on the field at the same time. Slap my knee. Wouldn't you know it? What happens when you get all your best players on the field and they all have a good game together? Man, amazing how that works. Amazing how, we shouldn't necessarily crucify a team who can't get all their players on the field.
Gary Smith would have that conversation as well.
Yes. We'll get to that in a minute because apparently Mukhtar is inconsistent. I don't know, man.
Oy. Oy.
So how many times last night on social media did you guys see the Bo knows football tweet?
I actually didn't see it until you just mentioned it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, I didn't see that. I told.
What are you talking about?
I went with I guess Montreal has to Bo home now. That's what I went with. I should have done Bo knows football. That would have been better.
I didn't make any puns. I just said it was a great goal.
Oh, no question. And now, I've yet to hear the call. I've seen the video, but I haven't heard the call yet. That's one of the things. When you have a moment like that, and I'll do the same thing going back. Like I said, I saw the highlights of Nashville and saw the game winner with Gustavo Bo. But one of the things that I always like to do is I like to listen to the call from the booth just to hear the reaction of the play-by-play guy in a situation like that.
It was a good one. The audio mix was very strange for FS1 in that first game. They had the enhanced sound pretty high. It was pretty enhanced. It got a little out of balance at times. I actually turned it down a little bit because it was a little distracting because there's nobody in the stands and you could see that. So it was weird. I didn't really like how mixed it was. that result worked out the way that I thought it would. The second game worked out the way that I thought it would, but maybe not to that much of a degree. And there's reasons for that, and we'll get into them. Nashville 3-0 winners over Miami. I mean, blew them out in the first 20 minutes. Got one more to kill it off. Nashville was in total control. Their 3 designated players played together for the first time. Gary Smith talked about that and said it was a massive factor in their performance because they hadn't been able to do that. Yonder Cadiz joined late. This was the first time he was able to be on the field with Leal and Mukhtar. Mukhtar earns a penalty, converts it. Leal with a screamer from distance, which is the number one thing you got to know about Randall Leal. He can score goals from distance. He's done it his whole career. This was a really good Nashville performance.
I can't get over that. That is like Steph Curry dribbling the ball up past half court. You have to pick him up at half.
Uh-huh.
You have to pick up Leal. Once he clears 35 yards from goal, you need to pick him up.
You've got to know these things.
Closing him out.
I mean,
that's simple. That has to be rule 1 with him.
I posted one of the goals he scored in his time in Costa Rica, with Saprissa against Alajuelense. That was an unbelievable goal from distance. I shared 4 or 5 more in our direct message chat. I mean, that's what this guy's known for. And it's the number one thing on my notes, on my Nashville notes, is Leal goals from distance. It's something you have to have in your mind, and Miami just didn't do it.
Yeah. How do you not? And I guess this is a half rhetorical question. How do you not pick that up? How do you not have that as a part of your notes?
Well, no. You don't know this. It wasn't part of the notes. You don't know that.
I don't, but it's
then no. You got to put this on some of the players too. I think it's both. I think, and yes, they were missing players. I know, they were missing players. This just because it was in the notes doesn't mean the players actually did it. I'm not going to throw Diego Alonso under the bus for that because we don't know. You can tell the players over and over again, and if they don't step out on that, then they don't step out on that. That's on the players. The coach looks bad. Yes. Potentially, right. But it's far more on the players. Right. What I'm going to get on Diego Alonso about is the tactical approach. I have no idea what he was doing with the lineup. Look, I know they were missing people. I know they were missing Leandro Gonzalez Perez, big deal. They were missing Gonzalo Higuain, that's a big deal. Federico Higuain as an attacking option off the bench, you're missing him too. These are big deals. But you played an fairly unfamiliar 3-4-2-1 that was really awkward to begin with how you tried to shoehorn people into it. When you shifted to a 4-3-3 variant, probably more of a 4-2-3-1, you looked better. You already 2 goals down. Why didn't you start that way? Why are you starting Alvis Powell as a center back here? If you don't have a third center back, don't play a third center back. Play a line of 4. You can still have defensive security. Play Alvis Powell as a right winger and tell him to sit back more. Or better yet, play your best player all season, Lewis Morgan, in the position that suits him best on the right wing.
Yep.
That's not rocket science. And, oh yeah, by the way, you paid a lot of money to go get Matias Pellegrini and Julian Carranza out of Argentina. Why are you putting them to the bench late in the season, and why are you not starting them in this game when you're missing a forward, Carranza, and you're missing other pieces around? You could have Pellegrini. You could have played a balanced 4-3-3. And look, we don't know what's going on in training. Maybe those 2 guys have checked out. Maybe they've been awful. Well, you paid a lot of money for them. They're not going anywhere. So now you got to go build 2 young players up, because if I'm one of those young players, I have a major question why my manager didn't trust me in this game. Not to start anyway. You could have started Mikey Ambrose at left back, De La Garza and Figal at center back, Powell or Nealis at right back. You're fine either way. Okay, that's your line of 4. You could have started Trapp and Matuidi as your holding midfielders. You could have played Pizarro as your number 10, Morgan on the right, Pellegrini on the left, Carranza up top. Juan Agudelo did nothing for you. Zip. You could have moved the pieces around very easily and started a coherent system that your team has been playing in. Instead, you overthought it. You played 1.5, really. De La Garza can play center back. He's played a little more on the outside at this point in his career, but he can play center back. Powell cannot play center back. So you put him out of position. You put Morgan centrally, which takes away a big element of what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
You overthought it. And, what has happened with Victor Ulloa? He came on in the second half. Why didn't he start? You want to be defensive? Don't start Pizarro. Play Ulloa, Trapp, and Matuidi. Play Matuidi in that number 10 role because it looks like he doesn't really want to play defense anyway.
Yeah.
Play Matuidi as the 10. Have Pizarro come off the bench. Don't know what's gone on with Ulloa. Ulloa was the one who was playing a lot in the midseason. Then now Trapp's back in. Carranza came in, did well. Now he can't get on the field when Higuain can't play. Breck Shea was recovering from injury. He had been a factor for this team. Why didn't we see him? Was he just not fit? If that's it, then be good to know. Pellegrini, I have no idea. I do not get what's going on in Miami with that roster, with the way they're managing it, with what they did coming into this game. That has zero to do with the 3 potential starters and Federico Higuain starting as a leap of faith. That has very little to do with those absences. Did it hurt them? Yes, it did. Did other teams have absences all year long? Yes, they did. So I guess it's okay to make excuses for Miami and absolve them of the fact that they got the tactics wrong. When they switched, they looked better, but they were down 2. But they got the tactics wrong, and they have mismanaged this roster from day one. I don't know why the love affair with Miami is out there. I don't know why anybody thought they were going to go to Nashville and win this game at full strength. But Miami is not what people try to make them out to be. They've got some serious issues going into next year.
The guy's missing, and that was the thing I kept going back to, is the guy's missing last night. I mean, it does hurt. I think it hurts not having a guy like an LGP back there. If for no other reason, the fact that, A, he does have playoff experience in MLS and successful playoff experience, he brings an edge, like a bastard edge to the game. Whether good or bad, whether he goes off the reservation and gets a red card in the 38th minute, create some of his own problems and then cleans them up. He does bring a bit of an edge there. You're missing a striker who, and I'm going to keep dunking on Hamburger because he has 1 goal in 8 games. It was a free kick goal. The guys who hurt you last night, I've been a Blaise Matuidi fan for a while before he came to MLS. That dude does not look up for it, or he looks like he expected to waltz through MLS, and he's getting a fist fight down the hallway like it's a scene out of Old Boy, and he does not have the hammer needed for this fight. When you look at the Dax McCarty goal, that Dax McCarty goal was shocking. The wide shot of that goal, it kind of honestly, the irony for me is what I thought about when I saw it was Barco's goal against Nashville in this first game of the season, where Nashville's still trying to sort themselves. Barco's running down the field, and the Nashville defense is a little disorganized, and they end up leaving Barco alone. He just lines up and takes the long shot. Dax breaks down the middle of the field. Miami looks like they don't really know what they want to do, and so Dax just pulls the damn trigger. He pulls it. It's not like he pulled it from 30 yards, by the way. Go back and watch it. He's right at the edge of the box. He's 18 yards away. That man walked to your box and pulled the trigger with no pressure on him. That can't happen.
I'm gonna rewind a second on Dax McCarty because this is a holding midfielders appreciation society, safe place
as it is.
And the tackle he made 30 seconds before that in the box, it was Mascherano on Robin 2014 World Cup semifinal. He tracks it. He stays with it. He times the tackle perfectly, doesn't commit a penalty, and makes the play that his team needed to make defensively. Then he gets the cherry on top with being able to advance 40 yards unmarked and pick out a corner of the goal. Dax McCarty was outstanding last night. Anibal Godoy was outstanding last night. And Anibal Godoy had a hamstring issue, and he will probably miss the match against Toronto. That's a big miss. That is a big issue. He should not have been on the field at that point with the hamstring injury history he had had. But those two were immense. And when you go into the numbers a little bit on these two, and I wanted to pull this up for a reason, because those two moves were questioned across the board. So many people.
Because that's the Dax that Chicago tried to trade for from New York, and they just, I don't know whether.
No, Dax has always been this guy. That's what's annoyed me. And Godoy's always been this guy. And both of them, it's like, oh, they spent too much. They paid too much money for both. And why are you spending so much on holding midfielders? Why are you doing it? Why? Because in a playoff game, you get this. McCarty with a goal, with that tackle, 33 of 38 passing, just a complete rock in the middle of the field. Oh, Anibal Godoy, 32 of 32 passing, didn't have one wrong. So your two holding midfielders had a combined 5 incomplete passes out of about 70 or 80. That's why you went out and you paid a lot of allocation money to San Jose to get Godoy, and why you traded to get McCarty. They're good. They're that good. And you combine it with getting Zimmerman, and you are such a secure team. And you've been able to build the rest around it. Mukhtar, Leal, Cadiz. You get Alex Muil. He gives you some bite. He gives you some edge. You've got Alistair Johnston on one side. You've got Daniel Lovitz on the other who can get forward. You can hurt teams a lot of different ways. This is not a one-dimensional Nashville team. But everybody who questioned those holding midfielders, and if you listen to the show, you know we haven't. Again, Holding Midfielders Appreciation Society. Mm-hmm. The Godoy move, everybody went nuts. The McCarty move, everybody went nuts. Everybody said Nashville wasn't that good. Said they were looking like they were going to be like a Minnesota or Cincinnati. Nashville, Atlanta in 2017, and you might argue that Nashville's better. Okay, I'll listen to the argument. Chicago in 98, Seattle in 09. Best expansion teams, first year ever. Chicago 98 is a whole different era for the league. It's hard to compare. But Seattle 2009, Atlanta 2017, Nashville 2020, as good as it gets. And they were all built differently, but as good as it gets. Nashville nailed it. And you compare to Miami. Look, we talked about roster issues with Miami. You know, Badger says the love affair with Miami is because of David Beckham. Gwen agrees. I don't think it's Beckham. I think it's Paul McDonough, it's Beckham, it's Diego Alonso, it's the whole package. As Miami's great, they're going to get it right. Well, they never did. Nashville, everybody trashed all year long. They had it right from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with Gary Smith and how he likes to build teams. And we've said this entire year about how Nashville was built down the spine. And then the offense came with the acquisitions and everybody becoming acquainted with one another and getting those societies all squared away. But they were built down the spine solidly. And getting Walker Zimmerman away from Los Angeles has been absolutely huge for them. And just
imagine trading a defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
And not replacing him until the last month of the season.
And not replacing him.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, come on. Yeah, so, Nashville got it all wrong. Exactly. Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, they got it all wrong. Hashtag sarcasm font.
It just doesn't make any sense. And that was the going story for the whole time. So,
yeah.
So Nashville advances in a big way. New England advances about like we thought they would. 2 games today, and it starts at noon here in a little over an hour in Central Florida, Orlando and New York City. I mean, it's kind of fitting, right? This is how these teams entered into the league. This is how Nashville enters into the playoffs, is with a game against New York City. It's not going to be at the Citrus Bowl this time, and it's not going to have tens of thousands of people, but there will be people on hand. Orlando's had the better of New York City in the all-time season, or all-time history of it, the series. Does Orlando get the win against New York City today, Jarrett?
I think they do. And I keep coming back to just this is for me, for Orlando, it is a matter of exercising demons. They exercise the first demon by getting to the playoffs and not collapsing in the second half of the year. The next step would be going in and winning a playoff game against a fellow expansion side from the same class. And my head tells me Orlando. My heart wants to say New York because I still do have a soft spot for Ronnie Dyla, as infuriating as his teams can be to watch, because they could go out today and get smoked by Orlando. Like Daryl DK puts up 2 goals in the first 30 minutes, kind of smoked. Or New York City could roll out there with like a 5-1 win. It's so 9s and 1s with some of these Ronnie Dyla teams, and Dyla's record in cup competitions, where it's one-offs, can get really dodgy real quickly. So I'm leaning Orlando, but at the same time, like if New York City rolls out there and just like blows Orlando off the field, I'm kind of just going to go, okay, well, Orlando just kind of like spun the wheel and it landed on Tiger Trap, because there's just no telling with Dyla and with New York City, even though they have that much talent. Orlando, for me, is the favorite.
I'm going to push back because New York City has only lost 3 times in their last 17. Started bad. Close, but bad. 1-0 loss to Columbus, 1-0 loss to Toronto before the pandemic. 1-0 loss to Tigres at home before the pandemic. 1-0 loss in the first game back. MLS is back. Then they lost to Orlando 3-1 at MLS is back. That was a bad loss. Since then, they had a loss to Portland after a couple of wins that got you a little worried. They had a 1-0 loss to the Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena. They then won 3 of their next 5, drew the others. Had a 1-0 loss at home against Toronto on September 23rd. And then they've been scoring goals. 4 against Cincinnati, 3 against Miami. Yes, 2 teams that weren't very good defensively. Another one, 4 against D.C. They lost to the Revs. They lost to Columbus. Those are the only other losses they've had this season. Since then, 4 straight wins. And the 4 straight wins, a 3 spot against Montreal, a 1-0 win in Hartford against Toronto, a 5-2 over the Red Bulls, and a 4-3 on the road at Chicago. They're a much better team now than they were mid-season. MLS is back. I think they go to Orlando, and I think they score goals, and I think they win.
This has, I've seen this Ronnie Dyla script before. My concern is one-off games and cups. And maybe I'm overthinking it, and maybe I'm trying too hard not to be biased and going so far in the other direction that I'm kind of being biased against the bias. I've seen that regular season script before when he was in Glasgow, where, first part of the season, you're like, this is not going to fly. And then once it clicks, it starts being like 3 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals, 2 goals, 5 goals, 4 goals. And everybody just starts playing free and loose and fun. You can't have that in Glasgow, though. Nope, can't have that. But I guess my concern is, you get into these one-off games, and I'm curious how he handles it. But I've seen that regular season script for sure. I'm gonna be really curious how they start next year. I know I'm getting way ahead of things. I'm gonna be real curious how they start next year because, is Dyla a long-term fit there? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I'm gonna go maybe on that one. Orlando last 8, 3-2-3. And it's streaky. It's 3 draws and then a loss to Miami, 3 wins in a row, then a loss on decision day to Nashville at home. I want to see how they bounce back from that. I've wondered about their mental strength all year. It's been better, but have they turned the corner? I want to see how they look in the first 15, 20 minutes. That's where I'm at.
Orlando's still buried under that surface if you dig far enough. It's still there. It's not out completely. I don't know what it takes to get it out. Maybe it's 2-0 in the first 25 minutes and a penalty wiped away, like a penalty pulled back by VAR. Maybe that's what does it. That old school Atlanta or Orlando, Freudian slip. That old school Orlando implosion it's still there. You just got to find it.
All right, the other game at 3:00, Columbus hosting the Red Bulls. I think I'm the only one out on the limb picking the Red Bulls to win this. I might be the only one in the country outside of New Jersey.
Yeah, but The numbers have compressed a little bit. Columbus is almost right at even money. They're at a minus 101. Red Bulls have come down from the plus 300 neighborhood. They're at a plus 270.
What do you think, Jarrett? Jarrett's trying to work the mute button.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm working the mute button.
On with mute buttons.
I'm looking at this and thinking like you're throwing a new manager into his first ever game in an MLS playoff game.
That's the part I don't like. Yes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I can overthink this, just Columbus. Like the problem is, any other club, I think you'd be like, man, that's a new manager. We don't really know what we're going to get. It's Red Bulls. They're going to plug and play a guy into a system that, we know at this point, even though there might be variations on it, like Chris Armas was working on before he was fired. I wonder if you get a manager who comes in here and is like, hey, guys, we're going to do some weird stuff and just kind of see what happens. I really want to pick Red Bulls in this game just because, go back into, even on decision day, like Columbus isn't the same. Columbus might have peaked early, I guess, for lack of a better word.
They had injuries, and I'll give them that.
I thought injuries weren't going to be an excuse. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry. They are.
Wow,
yeah,
right.
you missed that. For some teams, they are anyway.
Yes.
For some teams, a lot of things are excuses. For others, you can't mention anything that could possibly be construed as a reason for why something happened because it's an excuse.
Right.
Maybe a little inside baseball there. 4 losses for Columbus in their last 8. Again, injuries have been that issue for them. Zelarayan and Nagbe have missed a lot of time. They're back. I think the Red Bulls give them problems. I also think the Red Bulls are playing well. 1 loss in their last 7. They got the win over Toronto on decision day. We'll see about Struber. I mean, I feel like that could go either way. Like you get maybe a bonus new coach bump because he's there the first time, you're trying to impress him, and the playoffs. Or maybe you're confused because it's a different voice. I don't know. I think they go to Columbus and get the win. I haven't been as sold on Columbus all year long. I'm still not. I think the Red Bulls pull the upset. I really think they do. Jarrett, we got to get your picks quickly on tomorrow's games. Yeah. We'll run through these quick with just like a sentence or two on everybody's pick. 4 o'clock, Sporting and San Jose. San Jose is a big underdog. What you got?
Sporting takes care of it.
I'm the same.
God bless the Quakes.
Yeah, right there with you.
I don't trust them.
I think it could be a fun one, but yeah, I think Sporting wins it. 7:30, Minnesota hosting Colorado. Minnesota's a decent favorite.
Give me Colorado in the surprise.
Wow. You're not the only one. A few have said that.
Okay.
Yeah, give me Colorado in like a road upset, jumping up and bite them.
At a plus 200, yeah. I'll go with Minnesota at plus 120. I just think
got no beef with that.
Yeah, I got Minnesota there.
Yeah, I'm still on Minnesota as well. And Portland and Dallas tomorrow night at 10 o'clock on ESPN. Portland is a slightly bigger favorite than Minnesota is.
Yep.
I think Portland takes care of it. Dallas is just, man, I don't, like, there's just some teams like that, I don't trust them, and they scare the hell out of me in the playoffs because they could easily pull the upset, or they could just completely, crap the bed. I'll take Portland, though. More consistency, better spine, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what SC Dallas team I'm going to get on a daily basis. I just got to go with Portland in a postseason with Gio Savarese.
Yep, same here. That's it for the weekend. We'll be back on Monday to recap all of that. We're going to have a lot to talk about on Monday. Maybe we do a drop-in tomorrow on Twitch, kind of unofficial. So watch out for the bat signal on Twitter. I'm going to have my polls up here in a minute on the games. I'm usually doing them an hour before. All y'all who voted in the polls last night picked them right. At least the majority did. So let's see how it goes today with the game. So follow me at Longshoe. Follow Jarrett_Smith. Follow OSG Nelson so he can make Twitter work again.
Sign up for the Fantasy League. You've got an hour.
It's a bracket challenge. Sign up for it. You got an hour. It closes at noon. So you want to get in on it. The winner will get some SDH swag. And that's about it. So enjoy all of your games today. We'll be back on Monday for a normal show. Maybe something special during the weekend. Just stay tuned. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.